Today it's time for our second installment of our Digital Youth Camp training, and glad you decided to be here with us here today. I know it's been a good time. Last time we had a seminar on a little session on graphic design, which was very, very helpful. And we can send out a link to you if you happen to not get that last time, so you can get that information about how to create little other social media posts that look a certain way. We're going to talk about social media here today, but getting little graphics for social media, as well as creating design for upcoming events and that kind of thing, for signs and such. All of that was covered last time, and it was a great blessing, and I learned a lot myself. As I said, if you didn't happen to get that, you can go ahead and just, we sent an email out yesterday as a reminder for this. So you can go ahead and reply to that email and let us know if you need that recording link. We can get that out to you, no problem. I see a number of people are joining us here, and I suspect over the next few minutes, we're going to have a few more join us as well. But I appreciate you being here on time. And with that, we're going to get going here, and others are going to join us along the way. Just so you know how we're going to do this, I'm going to introduce our featured guest here today, Ms. Jacqueline Ruth. But before I do that, just want to let you know, she's going to present on social media, and we're going to have time for question and answers. I'm not so sure, Jacqueline, if you're planning on doing it in the middle of your presentation or not, but we'll have Q&A time. But however she ends up pausing to get those questions, whether it be during the presentation or at the end, I would encourage you to utilize the chat function to drop your questions in there, and I can share those with Ms. Jacqueline as she presents and as the time comes for us to do Q&A. That will help us get through them a little bit quicker. Or it also would work if you want to just go ahead and raise your hand virtually, or get on cam here and raise your hand so we can see you. We'd love to see all of you, by the way. I know most of you seem to have your cameras off right now, which is fine. But anytime you want to come and say hello, it's great to see who's here with us. The purpose of these trainings is to empower you with tools and techniques to be able to help your local churches and schools. We want to empower our young people and our young leaders to be able to make a difference in the church. Sometimes you can just sit there in church and kind of be a part as an attendee, but not necessarily engaged. So the point we're trying to make here is to help you find a way where you can say to your Pathfinder leader, you can say to your pastor, you can say to your youth leader, hey, I have something that I want to be able to contribute here. I can make that flyer for you. Or in this case here, we're talking about social media. Many of you, if not most of you, may have an account of some sort. And it's so interesting, you can use those accounts for the Lord. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And leading us in that discussion will be Ms. Jacqueline Ruth. Jacqueline and I have known each other for a little over a year now. She's a graduate of Southern Adventist University, where she did get a degree in communications, and social media is one of her passions. And she's presented on this topic times before, and I've always appreciated what she has to share, and even took notes along the way. And I know today will be no exception. So she's prepared some special tricks and tips for you regarding social media and how you can utilize it for the church and for your local schools, for your Adventist schools, or whatever ministry you may be involved in. And I don't want to take any more time away from her, so I'm going to just go ahead and begin with a prayer. But on a personal level, I really appreciate Ms. Jacqueline. She's a great, just a kind person. And Oh, that got muted somewhere. I don't know what happened. That's interesting. Well, I don't
Yeah,
know. Did
your
you guys hear?
audio and video froze for a second there,
Oh, okay, okay.
or for like a minute. So
A minute, yeah, okay. Well, let me just conclude my prayer. Maybe one more. Did you? I don't know if that cut off in the middle of the prayer or.
I didn't hear any of it. So
Okay, all right. Well, let's. My computer's been acting funny here. Let me go ahead and pray again, then. No problem. Father in heaven, we thank you for this opportunity to come together as learners. And we thank you for the young people who are here on this call. Lord, I pray that they will know right now that you've called them for a reason, for a purpose, right here, right where they are. And we ask that all that we learn here today about social media will be used for your glory, and that indeed we will be empowered to make a difference for you. We pray now in the name of Jesus. Amen. All right. Okay, Miss Jacqueline, go ahead and take it away, my friend.
okie dokie. Hello, everybody. Hi, I can't actually see any of your guys' faces, but hello, glad you're here. Let's see here. Let's start with, I need screen sharing available. There we go. And ta-da! Okay, there we go. And now let's go into present mode. No spoilers. All right, so again, as we said earlier, I'm going to be talking about social media and how all of you guys can utilize this in your churches. I'm going to say that if at any point during the presentation, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. There should be, I've planned it, so there should be plenty of time after I'm done to go back and forth with questions, because I would really love to know what you guys want to know. So let's just get right into it. So whether or not you guys know this, your church does in fact need you, because you have so much creativity and ideas that older people may or may not necessarily have. You guys also know your generation best, and so you know how to reach your generation. And so yeah, your churches, they need your help. And so I'm gonna give you some tools to so you can do that. So I'm not going to go too deep into like how to use social media, as in this is how you open Facebook and create and like post something to Facebook, because I think I can safely assume that most of you have at least one or two accounts, and you know how to post to it. If not, you can leave me a question in the chat and we can go over that if you have any technical questions. But yeah. So the first thing that I'm going to recommend you ask yourself is, does your church already have a social media presence? And so this is where you're going to get on your phone, your computer, and look up your church on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitter, see if they have it. And if they do have a social media presence, then it would be a good idea to look and see the kind of content that they already post. How often do they post? Is it mostly just links to their sermons? Because I know most churches have been doing online church services. And so have they been posting those things? Do they do weekly Bible verses? Whatever. That's going to give you a good idea of what your church wants to put out there. And it's entirely possible that your church may not have a social media presence at all. And if they don't, then it's a good idea before you go talk to them is figure out what platforms that they should be on. Now, when it comes to social media, sometimes less is more, because I know there's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, there's even TikTok, although I wouldn't recommend churches get on TikTok just yet. TikTok is not ready. But especially if a church is just starting out, it can be really overwhelming and they may not need to be on everything. And so I would personally recommend, if they don't have a Facebook page, to start there. That's a really, really good starting point if your church doesn't have social media at all, because in general, most people that will be attending your church probably has a Facebook profile. And so So this is where, after you've done, your analysis of what they've been doing or what they've not been doing, this is where you come up with a plan, because people like it when you come to them with an idea, and they may be more likely to take you seriously. Another thing to consider that I definitely want to let you guys know is keep your audience in mind, because you have attended your own church, you know who shows up to your church, and so the age range, okay, so more people generally tend to be on the elderly side, or maybe your church has like a really robust youth program, who's there. And so you definitely always have to keep your audience in mind, because you can come up with creative ideas, but if it doesn't connect to your audience, then it's going to fall flat. So to get practical, I would say for you guys to start with your peers. And so what I mean by that is, like, start with your Sabbath school group or your Pathfinder group or whatever, and talk to whoever is the social media person and be like, hey, I'd like to help you create some content for my Sabbath school group, or whatever, because you're going to find it much easier. It's going to be easier for you to talk to your own peers, at least at first, and then maybe after you've gained some more experience, you can start posting more for the general church, however you want to do it. But it is a good idea to collaborate with your social media person, or if they don't have one, then find like an adult that you can work with, because two heads are better than one sometimes, and it can be very helpful to have that adult perspective to help balance out your creativity. And then one thing to remember is that you are speaking for a brand. If you are posting on your church website or your church Facebook, it's not you necessarily that is speaking, it's the church. And so you have to be very mindful of sometimes how you're wording things. For instance, if I went to go and work for Nike and I started posting on social media, they have their own rules and guidelines that I would need to follow, because if I start posting things completely unrelated to sportswear, then they're not going to like that so much. And so it's always a good thing to remember that, you're speaking for your church and not for yourself. So I'm gonna go through some examples. I several years ago worked with the NAD to help promote blog posts on the Gorgeous for God blog. And the audience for that blog was young girls aged about, I think it was 13 to 24, 25. And so that was my audience. Those were people that were my age. And so I was able to talk to them. So for instance, if you look at this social media post, the image, first of all, speaks to my audience, because they're, it's for young girls. And so the picture is of a girl, she's holding her Bible. The post itself is about journaling your Bible experience. And so the topic also, it relates to my audience. And so choosing visuals that your audience can relate to is really helpful. You guys just did, your course on graphic design. And so you can even create something that you think your audience will like. And then one thing that you can also use your graphic design skills for is creating creative ways to show off Bible verses. And there is actually a Bible app where you can download. That's where I got this image from, is from a Bible app that had pre-curated images. And that can be good for all audiences. And then also, as you can see on this post, I have hashtags. And for certain social media accounts, hashtags are going to be really helpful. Facebook, a little less so. Usually hashtags are utilized so that other people can find your content. That is less relevant on Facebook, but if your church has an Instagram account, then the hashtags are going to be really helpful. So if you look at the post, I chose hashtags that related to the topic that I'm posting about. And so those are definitely some things to think about. I would say when you're coming up with hashtags, to keep a running list, because when you're creating posts, sometimes it can be really difficult to remember all the hashtags you can use. So if you have like a document that you just type everything out, when you're creating the post, you can just reference it, and then that can make your workflow a lot faster. Now, your church is not going to let you post things related to Disney, but this, I chose this as an example because this reinforces what I was talking about audience. This particular, for this particular post, I was promoting a blog that was talking about how to let guys down easy, because of course, young girls, that's something that sometimes they think about. And I knew that my audience knew what Beauty and the Beast was. They knew, okay, they understood the situation. So in that particular instance, that image was really helpful for my audience to relate to what I was talking about. And so that's kind of like a creative way that I found to relate to my audience. So you guys can get creative with it. You probably won't be able to post stuff about Disney, but you can still be creative about it. And then also, if you're working on Instagram, just another idea for you guys to think about is your Instagram aesthetic. And so there are free apps available that will allow you to cut up your photos to make them look nice, as I have on the example here. I will say though, you have to be careful because Instagram, when you're scrolling, and you guys probably already know this, it's not in chronological order. And so I would refrain from doing splits where there's text or words involved where you have to read them in order. Something like this, like the example I have here, will work. It would need to be something that it doesn't necessarily matter if the photos are out of order as people are scrolling. But this is another idea that you guys can take and make your pages a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, because especially on Instagram, aesthetics really bring in engagement, because that's what people go to Instagram for, is nice pictures. So for what you guys can do right now then to kind of wrap it up is figure out where your church already is on social media, see the kinds of things that they post, come up with a plan. If they need to be on social media, then figure out where they should be, and then go talk to someone at your church. If your church has a social media coordinator, I'm sure they would love the help. You can tell them you want to collaborate. I would, again, like I said earlier, start with your youth department, because those are your peers and you should be able to relate to them pretty easily. And then you can also take, if you guys ended up playing around with Canva from a couple weeks ago, you could even bring that graphic to them and be like, hey, I already have a graphic, I wondered if, we could utilize this on our social media, and this will help get you some good experience. So that's actually all that I had for that. I really wanted to hear from you guys and hear the kind of questions that you have. The main thing I wanted to kind of hammer in today was about audience, because at least I assume most of you know how to use these social media platforms. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the chat and I will be happy to answer them.
Hi, do you
Okay.
have
Okay, go ahead.
apps? Oh, I think someone asked that in the chat box. But any particular apps for the aesthetics?
And just before we go for it, aesthetic is a pretty big word. So I'm just for those that may be a little not familiar with that word, when we use the word aesthetic, we're just talking about how it looks and making it look nice and beautiful and clean and all that. So that's what we mean by that word, just making it look nice.
Yeah,
it's a fancy word for making things look nice.
Like as an example, like an aesthetic, like if you have certain colors, like if you use blue and green, then, kind of like that, like making like the colors match, because some people will use like all white backgrounds for everything. And so it's just a matter of what style you want to use.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can Google, I can't think of any off the top of my, actually there's like a Visco app for like editing photos, and that's free. But definitely, if you Google like free like photo apps, there's like a lot of stuff that you can look into and then see which ones are going to work best for you.
So yeah, were you just answering the question about what apps to use for Bible verse images and cutouts, or that's a separate question?
Well, for Bible verses, there's like the, I think it's called the YouVersion app, because that one does have pictures of Bible verses that you can download and use, and that's free.
Yeah, and we also talked about Word Swag last week as well, is one that you can use. You just go to your store and find Word Swag either on Android or iOS, and it's a pretty nifty app that allows you to just drop in some images. Drop in some text and choose an image, and it'll make it look nice and pretty. You can also design something in Canva as well. Maybe it's a little bit more work, but it's there. So Word Swag is a little bit easier. Just it's kind of more mobile friendly. You're ready to go. But yeah, those are some options: Canva, Word Swag, and what did you mention again?
Should be called like the YouVersion Bible app.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, you can just grab it.
That one answers for the Bible verse images. YouVersion already has stuff that, and you can also do a little bit of creativity on the app as well, but it has pre-made stuff that you can use. So that's what I used in my example.
Okay. All right. Feel free to keep asking any other questions. Here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to plug in my little earphones here. Well, Jacqueline, let's cover. Well, first of all, one thing I forgot to mention earlier is I work with Jacqueline in the communication department for the Chesapeake conference, and I don't think I even introduced myself. I'm Andre Hastic, the communication director for the conference, and Jacqueline is our communication specialist, who's serving a 2-year internship right now, and she's over halfway done. Time flies when you're having fun. So here we are. So anyhow, that's the background there. But Jacqueline, maybe we can cover some of the basics. I know you kind of went 2.0 here with this discussion, which is fine, because as you're saying, a lot of our people who are listening in may have some of the basics down. But for those who may not have them down, can we talk about something as simple as let's say I have, there's no presence on social media for my church. Where should I start? Should I go to Snapchat? Should I start a TikTok? What should I do to get my church out there?
Yeah. And I touched on it very, very briefly, but I would not recommend starting with TikTok. I don't think churches are quite ready for that yet. But if you have zero social media presence, I'm going to say start with a Facebook page, because that's most likely where your audience is at. Again, you know your church best, but I think starting with a Facebook page is a really good start. And then in regards to like social media posts, if there's absolutely no presence, you can again start with weekly Bible verses. You can like ask questions to get engagement. So you can ask your audience like, hey, what's your favorite Bible verse? Let's discuss it in the comments. Or if you record your sermons, like if you put them on YouTube or however you put them up, you can share the link to your sermons. And then, just let, your church members know, hey, we have a Facebook page. Come and interact with us over there. You can even get a little more creative with it. And if you want, you can, ask people, hey, show us, Sabbath at your house. If you guys are still doing those virtual church services, people can share pictures of them sitting in front of their TV or their computer, anything to get, engagement. So those are some examples of some starter posts that you can do. If you're doing posts for like your youth group specifically, you can do posts regarding like your Sabbath school lessons. You can announce like what next week's topic is. and get interaction there that way. If you already have a Facebook, you could go to Instagram next if you wanted to. It's definitely, you have to have like, it definitely lends itself to quality photos. And what I mean by that is basically just clear photos. So like it's not blurry and there's nothing like weird in the background. Yeah, you can go there as well.
That's awesome. And about how many times a week should we be aiming to post, let's say, for our Facebook page for church?
So yeah, I would say at a minimum 1 to 2 times per week. You don't have to go too hardcore with it, 3 at the max, but definitely 1 to 2 per week is good. And luckily, Facebook itself, it has a way for you to schedule posts out. So you don't necessarily have to post it live every single time. And so there's like a built-in scheduler inside of Facebook. It should be when you're like creating a Facebook post, because then I think there's like a drop down menu like under like the post button, there should be something that says schedule, and you can push it forward if that's what you want. And so that's really helpful.
So when you're creating a page, you have the option of going for a group or a page. Well, which one do you think is better for churches and why?
I would say page, mostly because that's just what I see the most of. I don't know. I haven't interacted a lot on Facebook groups, so I don't know as much what the difference is. But
Yeah.
I see more people doing pages, so I would say page over a group.
Yeah. So the advantage of the page is that it's public. So anybody can just come and like it and see the contents of that page without needing to be given permission or access to the page. It's a public, presence. Whereas the group, it can be more, it's usually done for more of a closed situation. So let's say you have a youth group at your church, you could create a youth group, like a youth group Facebook page that is a group and not a page. So it's really, you're sharing more, personal and or, stuff that's really not for the public per se. And it isn't personal, but in terms of just things that aren't really going to be out there for the public. So the thing is with the group, it's great for like a youth group. It could also be fine for the church, but if you're trying to publicize what your church is doing, it's really more of an in-house thing. So it's really more for the members of your church community will probably benefit more from a group, more so than the person you're trying to invite to your church. So the page will give you more of a public presence. The group will keep you more kind of doing stuff in-house. Facebook, algorithm-wise, in terms of how they choose to show posts, will show things from groups more frequently than pages, because they assume if you're part of a group, it's more engaging, whatever else have you. But again, the drawback there is it's really kind of more of for the people who are already in your church. It's kind of more of the community inside your church. So that can be helpful. We're going to pray for sister so-and-so, or, we're meeting at so-and-so's house for this, but the page is probably where you want to start if you're trying to get a presence for your community, for those who weren't necessarily part of your church. And you could also, obviously have your own members as well, your own church community a part of the page also. So you might end up with both, but probably the page you're saying, Jacqueline, is a good place to start for sure. Let's say if somebody starts a page, what's the way that they can get people to start following? Because it's kind of, you're going to have the follower of 0 or 1, but how do you make sure what are ways you can get more people engaging on your page and signing up to follow and like?
Yeah. Let's see, because once you've created a page, and honestly, what you can do, because you can then go to like your personal page, because like if you follow like a bunch of people from church, it could be as simple as promoting that on your personal page and being like, hey, like, church members, we have a page, and kind of spreading around word of mouth. However you usually do announcements, because you could even then, because I know most churches have like an announcement period during church services. So you could even very briefly just be like, hey, by the way, we started a Facebook page. You could, post a link to it. and be like, hey, we'd love for you to follow us and engage with us. So however, because how you typically reach, your mass church when you have big announcements. So however you do that, that can work.
Absolutely, that makes sense. And then, again, your church community is already a ready-made audience. They just need to pick up their phone. I like to make those announcements up front and say, hey, we give you permission to look on your phone right now and go ahead and like our page. And so it usually gets a good response. All right.
So I do
Any other
see a
questions here?
question in the chat. I
Okay,
see a
go
new
ahead.
one.
Yeah, there are a few questions. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if
okay, here it
we're
is.
doing Zoom Sabbath, how do you
Yeah,
put
okay,
the
you wanna
recording
read
on
it?
Facebook? So I think it's whoever and is hosting the Zoom meeting, they should be able to download the recording to their computer. I think that's how that works. And then one way you can put it on Facebook is you can one way is to upload it to YouTube, and then you can either make it unlisted or listed if you want it on your YouTube. And then you can take the YouTube link and then create a Facebook post and say hey, our new sermon is live or whatever on YouTube, and then attach the link to it. That's one way that you can promote it on Facebook. Or, link to your YouTube page that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you do have a couple of options. You do have the option of trying to do it live, and you have a Facebook or, as you're saying, the YouTube connection you can do live, or yeah, as Jacqueline just mentioned, if you download it to your computer, Zoom also gives you the option to upload it to their cloud, but there's only so much space you have for that. So it makes more sense just to download it to your hard drive, and then what you're going to do is upload it up to Facebook like you would any other recording. You can edit it a little bit or just send it up there as is. If there's a long weird waiting time in the beginning, like say you start the recording and there's 10 minutes of pre-banter welcoming everybody, you may want to edit that out so that the public may be more interested in just you jumping into your service. A little bit more work, but you got to think about the audience as well. So yeah, once the video file is on your hard drive, then you can just upload it to Facebook like any other video, and give it a title. And I think in the description, it would also be helpful to let people know what they're going to get into versus just saying, hey, this is the Sabbath service from July 11. Okay, your church members are going to care about that, but that's not really a shareable thing as easily. So think about what the pastor may be sharing. Think about a special song or whatever, and sharing the lyrics of that song, or sharing a quote from the sermon, like she mentioned a little earlier. That's a very easy shareable content thing. And then the pastor may have a quote that says, making it in life means that you're going to choose faith over fear. Boom, okay, quote. And then pastor blah blah blah, and then that can just be a little intro to the video. The video's there, but now you have a little text that kind of draws them in a little bit. So I would encourage you to be a little bit more creative than just saying Sabbath service, July 11. But give it a little bit of a draw so that people would say, oh yeah, I want to check that out. Oh, I didn't realize I missed that. Or somebody posted on their page, now they're resharing it, and that post as is, think of it as a shared post on someone else's friend's page or whatever, and say, okay, if a coworker saw that, would they want to click on it? And so give it that flavor, that appeal, so that it's kind of attractive to people outside of your church community as well as within.
Yeah. So if you're someone during church services, if you need a little help staying focused, because some of us get bored easily. I'm one of those, and so so one thing you can do is listen and write down quotes from the sermon, and that can help you stay focused. And then you also have social media content to share, and so it's a win-win. So that's an idea for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Please feel free to continue to share any of your questions that you may have.
One thing that I actually just thought of while you're making those posts and stuff is tagging people. And so if you guys are doing like a big online event or something like that, and you want, or doing something that you want the conference to know about, then you can tag us in it and we can reshare your stuff. We can like your stuff and interact with it. We would love to see what you guys are doing. And so if there's something that you think we would be interested in, you can definitely tag our page, and we can interact with you there. So that's always good for more engagement.
Okay. Any other questions coming to us here? I can keep sharing some questions. So how important is it, Jacqueline, to have a plan for your social media accounts? Do you just kind of wake up and say, I'm going to post this, or is planning it out helpful? And what's the best way to go about doing that?
Having a plan is definitely very, very important, and it will definitely lower your stress levels. So if you're really serious about it, what I would say is, like, you could literally sit down at the very beginning of the month and be like, okay, what am I going to post for this month? However you want to organize that information, you can like keep a running list. You can literally pull down a calendar and be like, okay, so on Sabbath, July 26th, we're going to share a post. It's going to have a quote from the sermon, link to the sermon, put that there. And okay, so on this date, we're going to do a Bible verse. That way, you're not waking up every single morning like, so what do I post? I don't know. You already have a written out plan for that. And of course, like I said, Facebook does scheduling. And so you can literally just sit down and plan like a couple weeks ahead of time, so that you can have some breathing room to plan for the next couple of weeks. Yeah, it's very, very important. I also see a question in the chat for how do you tag people? So on Facebook, so like for instance, if you were going to tag us in a post on Facebook, you hit the @ symbol, and then our tag is Chesapeake SDA. And so if you start typing it in, if you're following our page especially, it should pop up. And then, you know, there'll be like this drop down menu, and then you'll see, you know, Chesapeake Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, and then you can click on that, and then the text will then be highlighted. I think it's like highlighted blue or something. And so then that's how you tag pages. Sometimes you have to look them up, but yeah, if you hit the @ symbol and start typing in the name of the person or the entity you want to tag, then you should be able to find them in the drop down list that Facebook provides. So that's how you tag people.
Does that make sense? So let us know if that answered your
Yeah.
question.
If it doesn't,
Mhm.
I can share my screen real quick and just like show you an example of like actually how it's done. If that doesn't make sense, I can do that.
I think why don't we do a little sharing would be helpful, actually. I think seeing it would be helpful. So why don't you go ahead and do that?
Yeah, so let me real quick. Oop, not.
And maybe there's a couple of things you can show us while I think it'll be a lot more hands-on.
Yeah, let me see here. Can I come back to this really quick and then escape? Maybe. No. There we go. Okay, so let's hop on Facebook real quick. All right. So we're gonna go, so we're on my business page that I use for, so like, let's say I'm gonna create a post. I've got, you know, quote from sermon goes here. Our sermon is live, yada, yada. So then I hit the @ symbol, and then I started typing in Chesapeake. And so our Facebook page popped up. We also have women's ministries right here. And so then you can just click on that, and then boom, we're tagged in it. And so then if you click post, then we will be notified. So that's how you do that.
That's helpful. I know we're not meeting right now in person. Well, some of our churches are starting to meet in person again. But even little views from Sabbath, you mentioned people can share views from their their own homes. You know, when you're in person, you can take a few snapshots of congregational life. You know what I found people just like to see people. You know, and you can do your announcements and all that. But if there are people hanging out in the lobby, then I always walk around with a camera sometimes, or even obviously your phone will be just good enough. And people will pose. Some people will get shy, but a lot of people pose, especially people a little bit more outgoing personalities or a little younger, and they just have their moment. And it's great because it works well for the camera, and then you can go ahead and use that, and just say, hey, happy Sabbath from blah blah blah, or whatever else have you. So, or as Jacqueline mentioned earlier, the show us your view from your house or whatever as you're watching the live stream. What that does is it gets that engagement, meaning the people are going to respond. And then what happens, the more people that respond to your post, the more, let's say, Facebook or Instagram or whoever will show it, because it means that people like it. And the whole idea of these platforms is to keep you on them as long as possible. Like Facebook would be happy with you sitting on it all day long, as well as YouTube or Instagram or anybody, because that's how they make their money, through advertising. So they want you to have content that is actually interesting to the people. So the more you get people commenting on your stuff and sharing it, the more Facebook is going to continue to help you be seen by the public, by the masses, because they say, oh, okay, this channel has a lot of good content and people like it, so we're going to put it out there more. But if you don't have content that people are liking or engaging with, then it might not be seen by even your own people sometimes. So it's just really important to keep things out there that people are going to like and respond to and share, and that way it's going to help your presence on social media get bigger and bigger.
And it's also really important to interact yourselves. It can be really easy to sit back and wait for people to start interacting with you. But another good thing is look at, your neighboring, fellow churches. And if you see an event or if you see a post that you like, then you can literally, start commenting, because the more you interact on other people's pages, the more likely they're going to want to interact with you. And so it's definitely very give and take on social media. I find that when I interact with more people and I comment, then people are more likely to warm up to me. So definitely it's good to just set aside some time to literally just scroll. And yeah, if you see like us or the conference office, if you like something that we share, then you can like it, comment on it, or another church that's nearby you that did an event that you liked, then you can be like, hey, we went to your event and we really liked it, stuff like that. It's really good to do it both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, I was going to say something. One thing, we were just looking at even our own engagement on our own social media pages for the Chesapeake conference, and we saw that video seemed to do a lot better in grabbing people's attention. So like we talked about videos from the sermon, that's fine. So maybe little quick intro videos or highlight videos or whatever you may want to do, whatever it is, but videos are definitely content you want to keep in the mix. And not just a link to YouTube per se, but something that really is native, meaning it's uploaded on Facebook itself. And again, it can be a longer video, but it may be a shorter one, something very simple. Hey, here's a quick greeting from the pastor, or here's a quick greeting from the ministry leader, or here's a happy Sabbath welcome from one of our youth. Like Highland View Academy, over the last few weeks, they've posted like one of their students would do a devotional thought, and they share it, let's say on Friday, right? It's a simple way to get a video out there. They may talk for 2-3 minutes, share their scripture and pray, or just share their scripture and encourage everybody, and then they move on. Simple, it doesn't have to be huge. Again, I know a lot of the ideas I may have had, were linked to the church, but, meeting in person, but having a quick video, again, of ministry in action, it just shows people what the church is like. And that's really what social media can be a big help in, is helping people see what's happening on the other side of those doors, or the virtual doors as it may be now. But it's good to just help people see, hey, here's who we are as a congregation. And it just makes a big difference in people really understanding what, what your church is about and why they should feel comfortable in becoming a part.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
for, the young people, if you're willing to like record yourself doing like a Sabbath welcome video, then that's something that you can bring to your social media person and share. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah, people like seeing other people's faces.
They do. They do. Now, again, I know everything's different now, but even something as simple as, if you go on a mission trip or, whatever it is, or do some community service, all of those things can easily become a video. Like kids raking leaves. Hey, here we are, blah, blah, blah. We're at community center, or we're here at a neighbor's house, just trying to make a difference in the community. Hey, why don't you come out here to help out? Boom. All right. And then you talk to the person who's receiving whatever. Hey, how's this helpful? Of course, as it's appropriate, but the bottom line is you want to catch the action happening more so than just a talking head talking about life. It's good to get the action happening. It's way more engaging that way, and it helps people see what's going on. So it's really, the platform is just that. Facebook is not everything. YouTube isn't everything. Instagram isn't everything. But what you do with it can make a big difference. So you can get an account, and a lot of our churches may get an account, and it just kind of sits there. Well, it's a tool, but every tool has to be picked up and be utilized, right? So don't let even this coronavirus pandemic thing slow you down. Actually, it's a great way to do even more online at this point. And again, for those of you who may be, listening right now, if you have any questions, if you have any tips that you want to share that you felt were helpful for you, that you may be a part of your social media there at your church already or doing it somewhere, we'd like to hear your tips as well. All right, I have another question here in the chat, and it says, hi, do you put a flyer of an upcoming event on social media? So how do we handle upcoming events, Jacqueline, on social media?
Okay, so there are two ways to do this. And I'm actually going to really quickly share my screen again because
Good idea.
visuals. Yay. All right. So there's, you can also always just make literally a social media post announcing it and then uploading your flyer because you can put like a photo on there. But another way to do this is there's an events tab right over here. Yeah, I want to leave. I didn't want to do anything. So, okay, so we're going to go to create a brand new event. So let's say, okay, well, no, hang on, sorry. Let's see, can I edit it? Okay, hang on, sorry. Here, let's just leave that, hang on, because I know this will work, okay. Come back to my home. Okay, we're gonna go over here because I know this will work. Okay. Sorry, Facebook just like revamped like how like the whole dashboard works. And so now I'm like, wait, what? Okay, here we go. Wait. That is really weird. It's not letting me edit.
Edit, that's fine. Well, I mean, this is basically, show us what you can. This is desktop previews. But
yeah,
but it may be on a second page or something here because, yeah.
Oh, here, no, what? That's really weird.
So ideally here, I mean,
yeah, ideally you should be able to edit it. And so there's like usually a spot for like a banner. And so then you can put like your flyer on the banner. You can then also like create a post like under the event, and you can post the entire flyer with more information if you want to. And it's also a way for people to let you know if they're going to your event and kind of, and then this is also another way you can make announcements. So like if I click that I'm going to an event, then somebody then like if the church like had to postpone it for some reason, you can put it under this. So everyone that clicks that's going to the event is going to get the notification. It's like, sorry, we had to postpone for one day because of this. Or if there's like something else, like, oh, we added a guest speaker or something for, you know, our online event, then you can put it under here, create a post, and then everyone that clicked that said they're going to the event, or even if they're interested in the event, is going to get the notification. And so then, and you can put your flyers on here in like the banner, and then as a post as well. And it's a good way to kind of organize events, so that all the content relating to one event kind of goes under one like section. So it's not spread out everywhere.
Yeah, and it's great because as people are interested, they, you know, it keeps a running tally and of all the people who are interested and are coming, and it will remind you that, you know, it'll show a notification like an event that you signed up for is coming up soon. It's just a great way to publicize things. Quite frankly, it's worth it just to do both, like you have an event and also have a separate post about the event with the graphic, you know, little sign that you come up with, promoting it that way as well, and that, you know, you might get a little extra engagement one way or the other.
Oh, okay. I sort of
as it
figured
were.
it out a little bit. I was messing with it. So, okay, when you click to create an event, there's this next button, because you have to pick whether it's going to be a private or a public event. So I picked like a public event, and then you have to click next, and then this is where you start editing stuff. And so here's where you can upload your photo. So, okay,
awesome.
There we go. Figured that out. That was going to bother me. So yeah, that's where you can put that in your events.
You know, another thing to highlight is anything that's important to your church. Let's say, for instance, like when you baptize somebody, or, you know, you do have like a youth day or whatever else have you. These are like big days in the life of a church that you want to, you know, try to capture. And again, you may have somebody in your church that's already taking pictures. That is great if they could pass those off to you. Sometimes it could be tricky getting those pictures from those people. So just being ready with phone and taking good quick pictures is ideal. When you can take a picture outdoors, all the better. Again, I know we're in a funny time now, but if it's indoors, you know, lighting is key, and just making sure it's not blurry, that you're not moving and the subject is not moving that much or at all, is ideal. So those are the little things that help you snap a good photo. And again, those are very shareable things you can put up on your social media feed, and you know, people are going to like it and enjoy it.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you're and you may not want to be super involved in like the social media posting, you can also volunteer to be a photographer, to just walk around and take pictures at an event, because that's always really, really helpful for social media. So if you feel like that's your wheelhouse, then you can totally volunteer to do that as well, and then give it to the person that is going to post it. It's always very helpful.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll wait for a little bit longer here for any additional questions. As you know, again, social media is where so many people are, especially as we're, you know, in a distancing place, social distancing, and, you know, still trying to, you know, not be in public as much as we have been, or in smaller numbers. So people are very much reliant on online for communication and staying connected. So this is definitely a time, if your church hasn't gotten into it, and again, if you're younger, you know, you're going to always need to work with an adult to make it happen. But the reality is, as Jacqueline started off with, we do need you. The church needs you, because you're going to bring that energy to the table, that know-how, to help us stay relevant, you know, in social media. And for a lot of people who are checking out churches for the first time and are thinking about whether or not they want to go, the first thing they'll do is check out their social media page. and just see what's going on or see what's not going on. So if it looks kind of dry on the page, you know, they're going to say, oh, okay, they don't have anything going on, they'll move on. But if you're helping to put some content out there, they're like, oh, okay, you know, and, you know, like people may not follow the Instagram page if there's one picture on there, you know, but if they're able to kind of scroll down and see, okay, you've been posting here for 6 months or a year and you have a lot of things on your grid, then all of a sudden, you know, it becomes potentially follow worthy. And something like an Instagram, you know, people will sometimes follow you back. So you can also follow a bunch of other churches, your local churches or anywhere in the world, or your church entities, meaning like the conference, the Chesapeake Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. We have one, you can follow us. You know, and we'll follow you back if you're one of our churches, especially. Many other organizations will follow you back as well. So the church has so many different, you know, there's ADRA, there's North American Division, there's the Columbia Union, there's, you know, and every little ministry has their own page. So there's a lot of pages you can start to engage with other entities like Voice of Prophecy and, you know, It Is Written. And, you know, so by the time you're done following these, some of them will follow you back, and that will help to start get some more engagement as well for your pages also.
Yeah, and they might post something that kind of inspires a post that you want to do. Because I'm very often inspired by what other people have posted. I'll see something and be like, that's a good idea. I'm going to like adapt that for like, you know, my own purposes. I can use that, you know, in a different way. And so, yeah, just following a lot of people is very helpful from, you know, refilling your creative well as well. Because I know it can be really draining, trying to be creative, you know, all the time, trying to think of stuff. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'll go ahead and just put our little, I think we already talked about it, but I'll put our handle there for basically Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's all the same. And you can go ahead and find us real quick on any of those. And of course, YouTube as well. You can just search for Chesapeake Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, and you will find us there as well. I'm going to drop this in the chat real quick.
Yep. And if any of you guys do end up following us, be sure to say hi. We would love to talk to you guys on social media. So be sure to come and say hello.
Before we go, let's just talk a little bit about next week. We have one more installment to go, and it's going to be about podcasting, which I know is kind of still a pretty new-ish thing for a lot of people that we know about podcasts. Many of us may listen to them, but I think for our churches, we're not necessarily utilizing that platform as much as we could. So it'd be great to hear from someone who deals with podcasts on a daily basis. So Jason Frias will be with us. He has a strong background in audio and technology, and he himself works with podcasts on a daily basis and helping different organizations in publishing their podcasts, most notably The Review. He works with them in publishing a podcast that comes out regularly. And so he receives that material, edits it, and all that. So he has a lot of experience, and I think it's going to be very, very insightful. And I look forward to learning from him as well. That will be happening next Friday on the 17th, the same time at 2 p.m. So feel free to share the word with your friends and family and church. We'll, definitely would love to have them come, and especially for young people, as we want to make, have the emphasis for. And for a pod, again, it's you're going to have audio recordings that can reach the world, can reach your community, reach the world. And so much of what we're already doing on a regular basis is already primed for a podcast, such as a sermon happening every week. It's an audio-based conversation, even though there are visuals that are attached to it sometimes, or the visual of seeing a pastor, but it just as easily could lend itself to a podcast, and many churches out there are doing just that. And there are other ideas, which I'm sure we're going to get into next week. So please, we encourage you to come back next Friday at 2 o'clock. And be here for our third installment on podcasting, which I know is going to be very, very unique, and it will help your church, your ministry, have a cutting edge presence in the world for sure. All right, any final questions before we go, friends? Or any final thoughts you want to share, Jacqueline? Okay. Well, it was so glad to again just take a look at the chat. You see that's where you can find us at Chesapeake SDA. You can find us on our website as well, ccosda.org, or you can just Google Chesapeake Conference of Seventh-day Adventists or of SDA. You'll find us, and you can send us an email there and message, and we'll get back to you for sure. Thank you for being here, friends, and look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good Sabbath, and God bless. And please share whatever you have out there on social media. We'd love to reshare what we can on the conference level. If you're having local events or whatever else have you, we want to make sure that what you're doing gets to be seen by as possible, so everyone can engage and appreciate the hard work you're putting in. So yes, please keep in touch, and we'll see you next week, Friday 2 p.m. God bless.